Oh, good.
Welcome to the Gender Identity and Bullying panel with our lovely guests.
Remembering your time in school, were you bullied?
I was bullied from the time I was in kindergarten up into college, so my whole life pretty much.
I was part of the lucky few that got to really experience and express themselves during quarantine, so I lucked out in that subject.
I was definitely made fun of in like elementary school and middle school, but in high school it was less bullying and more just like microaggressions.
How did you cope? Were you resigned to the situation or did you rise above?
I coped through different avenues. I definitely learned to become more reserved, but for me, I did activities like yoga, surfing, hiking, traveling, also watching movies and reading books.
Yeah, finding my community was very helpful, finding people who I could trust and talk to, and therapy for sure has helped.
Did your peers just go along, join in, or ignore your situation?
When I was younger, kids would ignore the situation, but as I got older, people became more protective. I remember one time in college, a dude had called me a fag and hit my hat off my head. I was ordering food from a food truck, and two of my girlfriends jumped in and kicked him out of the line, so it does get better.
Did anyone look back at their actions and possibly feel sorry or apologize for the harm they caused?
No one's ever apologized, but honestly, I don't know if I would accept their apology if they did.
How did it feel when you were called out as gay before you were accepted or even knew about your sexuality?
As a first grader, I didn't really know what words meant, but I based it on what people's body language was. So it was quite horrifying to process what fag or gay meant. And I didn't start letting people in until I was about a freshman in college, and I didn't realize I was gay myself until I was about in 7th grade.
For me, it was very confusing because it felt like a really deep injustice and I couldn't really figure out why that was. I remember in middle school, I was trying to help one of my friends who didn't really want to participate in our gym class, and the only way she would was if I was holding her hand. And there were some students who would call us slurs, and that really hurt because I didn't know like why it was such a bad thing. And that definitely made me not want to be myself. And it wasn't until like sophomore year of high school when I found friends in a community who felt the same way I did that I felt comfortable exploring that side of myself.
Did stereotyped roles affect your perception of yourself?
When I first started letting people into the fact that I was gay, I kind of leaned into the stereotypes. I walked really fast, I drank coffee, I watched Bravo, and as I've been coming out, I've become more comfortable in myself, and I feel like I'm less like the stereotypes now. People usually assume I'm straight.
And throughout my transition into what I am now, it was very difficult trying to set that line that I don't have to be one way or another. I don't have to not paint my nails because I'm a guy or things like that.
Sometimes it feels like those stereotypes help, even though like they aren't true for most people. Leaning into stereotypes makes you feel more like you are that, like you have to prove it to yourself that you fit into that box, and that's just not true. You can be yourself and still not fit into that stereotype that people say that you should.
Did you ever feel Did you ever feel like a victim then and now?
When I was younger, definitely, but as I've gotten older, I've become more comfortable in myself. I mean, we're part of an incredible history and culture and community, so I've really learned to lean into that for sure.
Agreed.
What resources were made available to you, and what advice was helpful, and what advice was flawed?
That's an interesting question. Flawed advice that being gay is a choice, that's a fun one. That you should always let people into the fact that you are LGBT. In fact, it can be dangerous. That it's appropriate to use gay as a term that's something negative.
there were a lot of resources made available to me throughout my community, as like it's a different era, and I've had a lot of like good friends and a lot of like GSAs and high schools and a lot of people that I could go to, as well as out in the community, like community closets and places like Oxbow or Tapestry, which are really good for gender affirming care.
Some helpful advice that I got from my therapist was I was really struggling to decide whether or not to disclose to people that I'm starting testosterone, especially like family members who I wasn't sure how they'd react yet. And she said that like it's a hard decision because it's so personal to you, and that is your medical journey and yours only. And even if people ask questions, if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to say anything. You can just continue living as is, and if you do feel comfortable, you can tell them, but don't feel pressured, and it's your choice to make.
When and how were you able to share your gender identity with your friends and family?
When I was first starting with my transition, my friends kind of already knew. It was just a thing of, telling them like, hey, my pronouns are changing. But with family it was a lot different. My mom and I, we fought a lot in the beginning. And I don't think it was necessarily because I was trans or I was transitioning. It was more so because it was just such a difficult thing to like realize that, your kid is constantly changing and is making such a big decision like that. And so we fought, but she's like my biggest supporter now. So we've really worked everything out.
When I started letting people in, I was a freshman in college, and my best friend at the time outed me to my mother, and that was really hard, and I definitely think you should be able to come out on your own terms.
Yeah. The first time I told one of my friends was in 8th grade, and she's still my best friend now, and she says she completely forgot I even said anything because I didn't actually, start living as myself until, like halfway through high school. And I think my friends knew a lot more before I did. They were just waiting for me to realize myself, and they were always like helpful, like when I wanted to experiment with new pronouns and stuff. But my family, I'm very lucky to live in a really privileged family that accepts me for who I am. Sometimes it's not, there are difficult moments, like when I first came out to my mom, she would say that she was grieving the loss of her daughter, and that it was going to be difficult for her to, process what I had just told her. So now she's definitely gotten a lot better. Sometimes people just need time, and you need to give people a chance to be able to know who you are and know that, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still the same person who I always was. It's just evolving into someone who I'm more comfortable being.
What was the reaction or feedback of those who you shared this?
My mom ended up coming out as a lesbian, which was a big surprise to me. If I would have known that key fact, it probably would have come out a little differently. I feel like it's kind of like a shield for me as I've gotten older. Like, if you don't like me because I'm gay, it's like a repellent, and I love it.
Was there pain or confusion from family or friends about this, and how did you or they deal with it?
There definitely were some times where people didn't understand or, said hurtful things, but a lot of the time people are just scared of like what they don't understand. And yeah, you need to give people time to learn and understand what that means for you, because for everyone it's different. And also like just being able to surround yourself with the friends and family who do care and do treat you the way you deserve to be treated goes a long way in helping yourself.
I think what people don't realize about coming out is it's a continuous process. You come out to your family, you come out to your friends, you come out to your job, and if you switch jobs, you have to come out all over again. So it's a constant process, I feel like.
Yeah.
If you identify with other cultures, how did you feel that your cultural background dictated your choices?
I was raised Catholic, so there was a lot of shame I associated with figuring out my sexuality. But I'm also part Hawaiian, and in Hawaiian culture, two spirits are honored and respected and revered. So I also had a lot of pride when I came out and identifying that my culture is a part of that community.
Follow-up question. Have you embraced and or identified yourself in all your various cultures?
I'd say yes, definitely. I have, for sure. Even my Catholicism, I think there's a rich history of LGBT people that have been part of the Catholic Church. So I own it. How about you guys?
I don't think so. Not for me.
Yeah. So one of the things that comes to mind for me is my grandfather. When I was baptized, I was visiting Massachusetts, and I decided to put my aunt's red heels on, and he was like horrified. I remember he ripped them off me, and he chastised me, and I think for my Latino culture, there was a lot of shame, and that's partially why I stayed in the closet as long as I have.
How did the realizations and being gay / trans allow you to accept the feedback from family and friends?
You know, as I started letting people in, my sexuality has made me feel unconditional love from so many people. It's made me receptive to feedback for people who accept me as me.
I agree.
That's really well put.
Thank you.
Do you feel that it's the number of people or the quality of people? Talk about that a little bit, because I think, especially as young kids, we identify with, having so many people. Do you know what I mean? Like, so talk about those kind of relations. You understand my
Yes.
question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for like me at least, I don't have a lot of friends. Like I'm not like, one of the famous people in like high school or anything. But I definitely have like a couple like really set in stone friends who have been with me for like a very long time, and they're just like really good support people. And so it's not really quantity over quality or anything.
Like you mentioned earlier, my queerness is sometimes repellent to other people, and that's okay, because the small group of people that I surround myself with are accepting of who I am, and I wouldn't want to surround myself with people who made me feel less than. I want to be able to, be who I am authentically.
One of the counselors I worked with used to say, you might not be the world to every person, but you might be the world to one person. And I think about that a lot.
Has your friend group or your attitudes about friends changed as you age? Like, obviously this is two big different age groups.
Yes.
Where do you see now yourself and how you look at those supports? That's all.
When I was younger, I sought friendships because it was protection against bullying, against being discriminated against, and it was honestly just nice to have someone that maybe understood me a little bit. As I've gotten older, I've become less focused on the quantity and more focused on the quality of my friendships. Like currently, I probably have about 5 friends in the area, and I like it that way. I see them regularly, and they're important in my life. So that's kind of how it changed for me.
For me, it's been like a few months since graduation, but it's like, it's not really, the friend group that we used to have definitely broke up. We used to have a really big friend group, and since graduation, it like really pulled apart, and it made me realize that you don't really need a bunch of friends in order to feel supported in what you are and who you represent. It's more so the people and their personalities and how they are, and the people that I surround myself now have a lot better personalities than the friend group I had before.
So how do bullying and stereotyping affect your life now?
I think for me, I'm a people pleaser, and it's something I'm working on. I've always learned to cater to how other people are feeling, and I'm learning to more so sit with myself and feel like try to focus on how I'm feeling.
For me, I'm very internalized stereotype myself, and I do certain things in order to achieve a certain standard and things like that, and I have a lot of internalized transphobia and homophobia as well, and it's really difficult trying to work through that, but I'm getting better.
Yeah, I don't say I would I experience bullying now in this part of my life, but still trying to figure out, what parts of me are trying to validate myself through a stereotype, and what parts of me are just, identifying with these similar features that, LGBT people have, and just trying to figure out how.
I was mid-thought, and so the question that she said is, how do bullying and stereotyping affect your life now? You talked about your own personal kind of like gender identity with the stereotypes that have already, and you were all set? Or did you, ready?
Yeah. So, stereotyping today, I still see, I'll meet people who make, judgments based off of their first appearance. I mean, I have dyed hair and piercings, so, I very much fit into that stereotype of someone who would be queer. But trying to figure out, how to make sure that I'm still myself and don't fall into those stereotypical ideals is still something that I'm figuring out. But I feel like for the most part I've tried my hardest to live as myself and not as how someone else would see me.
What methods can you suggest to today's students to cope with bias?
I think a big one would be educating yourself, going out and listening to people like these conversations or reading books. Another would be developing critical thinking skills, really thinking through what your thoughts are on the community and what you know. And cultivating empathy, I think, is a huge one as well.
Yeah, finding people to talk through your identity and being able to know who you are can take time. So definitely doing that work to try and find people who you can be comfortable with. So you can develop those thinking skills and be okay, this is how I feel about this part of my community, and this is what I want to engage in. And these are maybe people that I don't really want to engage with, are good to try and, cope with the bias that you might face, coming from other people.
What message would you like to send to those who made your journey in becoming the you that is with us today?
First thing that comes to mind is namaste, which means I see the light in you that sees the light in me.
I think that it's just, there's in my family at least, I'm very privileged to have a massive family that all are very supportive, and maybe even if they're not supportive, they won't really say anything against it. And so I appreciate that I grew up in something like that, and I had the opportunity to be able to be what I am.
Thank you for giving me the space and the time to figure out who I am and not thinking of me differently because of it.
Great, thank you. Well done. You guys were awesome.
So what do you do internally yourself on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis to see that you're regulating the way you want to be regulated?
I think just little things being able to talk to my friends, when we hang out together, we're not going how's your transition going?
Right, yeah.
How's your love life? What's your sexuality like? I mean, that's just not how it goes. We just, without having to bring up being in the LGBT community in a conversation, we just enjoy each other's company. And that's enough, being respected and, being able to be comfortable with someone and know that they respect you. And for me, on the day-to-day basis, I do things that affirm my gender, wear a binder and, wear pronoun pins at work and have shorter hair, and just little things like that on the day-to-day basis make a difference for me.
I think for me, it's doing community events. There's a lot of LGBT activity. So I joined a Rainbow Dodgeball League in Northampton. It's so fun, and I think the thing I enjoy about it is it's not a lot of. First of all, a lot of gay spaces are about drinking, and this one isn't, as far as the dodgeball goes. Also, it's not like you have to have these long conversations. Like you're just focused on playing a good game of dodgeball, and good job, buddy, and that type of thing. So I really enjoy it.
All right, well, let's give our panel and our thank you so much for being part of our first PSA. We're going to do a series of these. You guys were awesome. I would love if you could maybe send us an email and just give us some feedback of what you liked, what you didn't like, and maybe some list of resources that you currently have, so that we can include that at the end of our video for other people that are watching the video. We don't know if they're going to eventually, hopefully, make it to the Easthampton media, but our goal is to at least show it in-house and then eventually move out. We want to do a video library of all kinds of issues, and we really thank you for taking the time, and I know that some of that stuff I could see was very emotional, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. So thank you. One more time.
One more question.
Oh, one more question.
We're involved with some community here regarding getting your resources out here. And when you mention resources that you look back on that have helped you in the past or presently in your life now, if you just give a little blurb possibly regarding how effective you think those organizations are in relation to you. Specifically, after this work, have you found them helpful?
I have. Like Trans Health in Northampton, Florence area. Like that's, where I started, testosterone, and they also have like a community closet. And the community closet, I've definitely gone there a couple times. Resources like that were helpful, and also being a part of the GSA. Like at this school, we were part of it for a while. Those communities were definitely helpful for me to have those spaces to express myself in somewhere safe.
Yeah. And hopefully that's one of the things maybe from this video we want kids to reach out. Why wait till a certain age? If this is how you feel, this is who you are, then you should be able to do and live the life that you need to live. That's yours. You were talking before, you just want to be a normal person, living life, highs, lows, right?
I do want to validate though that sometimes it's safe to be in the closet and not come out. Maybe your family's not accepting or you're not sure and you depend on your parents. So I can totally understand why someone might need to stay in the closet for as long as I did or more.
That makes sense, right? I'm not advocating, but I want kids to be able to have resources, to be able to have at least someone that supports them.
Yeah.
And I agree, I get that.
Because I have students who come in here, even when they come to the individual supposed to sign in. I have some students who have a name other than their birth name. And so they have the space not to sign in. They feel that's going to put them in jeopardy with the community here. Or someone might say something that goes back to their parents. Or such and such is using such a name versus that name. So finding safe spaces like that.
That's awesome.